find adventure at the click of a button, or from the turn of a page, or the casting of a die. Join your hosts, Conniff and Shiloh, on an unforgettable journey. Questing the Multiverse.
Welcome to Questing the Multiverse, Episode 7, Tennessee Sucks in the Summer. For those of you that are not Ryan Adams fans, that's a Ryan Adams song when he used to live in Nashville. My AC is out and I have a fan blaring, so my apologies to the listener. There's nothing I can do about it without me melting. So, and as we all know, you don't want me melting. So.
No, definitely not. And I think with the Zoom audio special effects nonsense that they've got, it doesn't sound really bad, honestly. So
no, that's good.
It may not be as clear as you usually are, but again, it's the summertime in the Midwest. You do what you can because it blows. You know, Shiloh, I saw something the other day and it was like a post by probably someone my age or maybe older, and it was you know, you grow up your whole life and you always look forward to summer because it's the one time of the year you just don't have school. You don't have to do anything. Yeah. And so your whole life you're conditioned to just love summer. And then the paragraph stops and then just one sentence below. Summer's miserable.
Summer sucks. I've always hated summer. I don't know if it comes from me being born in a blizzard in Indiana, but I've just never liked it. In fact, when the cicadas come like full force this year, not this year, whenever they come, I try to avoid researching when they are going to come, but I think I'm going to move to Iceland, somewhere where there are no cicadas. Because then you have sweltering heat and
demon insects,
demon bugs. Yeah, I don't want to do it again.
So, listener, if you're new to Shiloh and I specifically, and you were not a listener of GG Party Chat, or rather an avid listener, because I think you only mentioned this once or twice, Shiloh hates cicadas. Like Kansas City Chiefs fans hate all other football teams, it would seem. So it's a fun fact. And you know what? If there were cicadas in the game Grounded, would you play that game, Shiloh?
No, like you know how people have arachnophobia. I don't
you
know
need
what
a cicada slider.
Cicada phobia, yeah, something like that. I'll just run away. I would not progress to X cicada boss. I would just take the emergency exit
and sign off.
Exit and log out.
Oh yeah. So anyway, because his AC's out, because when you sit in front of a computer and you record a podcast or do anything, your computer starts heating up the room and fans everywhere, and I can imagine it sucks. We're going to keep this episode shorter. We got a few little news things we want to talk about, and then we're just going to talk about real straightforward our Baldur's Gate 3 experiences, and then get into what little Shiloh has been able to play of Starfield. And my sort of pent-up excitement since I've been away all weekend for the last few days. Honestly, I haven't been able to game, so I didn't get Starfield early with the upgrade to game, like the premium upgrade, because I was like, well, there's no point. I'm literally going to spend that money for nothing. So,
have you been able to play any board games or?
No. I did go to Barnes & Noble today and I bought 2 books. One is another Brando Sando. Did I tell the story about the Barnes & Noble chick that my wife encountered?
Brando Sando now.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
She went to pick me up that Tress of the Emerald Sea book, and she has no idea. And so she goes to Barnes & Noble, asks one of the ladies at the counter, and she's like, "Do you know where this book is?" And as she holds up her phone that I've taken a screenshot of, and I guess the person was like, "Oh, Brando Sando," and my wife is like, "Whoa!" Like I wasn't ready for this energy.
I didn't know he was ScarJo or
apparently
J-Lo,
so
famous. So okay,
he is in the literary world.
Yeah, he is at Barnes & Noble.
Yes.
To Barnes and Noble employees, he is the equivalent of Scarlett
He
Johansson. So.
Robert Downey Jr. Um, so anyway, I went there and I picked up the Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England or something. I don't know. It's not.
Wow. Okay.
It's so we talked about how I read House of Leaves, and that book is like mind melting. Just academia almost, the way it's written with footnotes and references and French and Latin and backwards and forwards and upside down and 3 words on a page in the middle and then 3 words up at the top. It's whatever. So Tress of the Emerald Sea is like several light years in the other direction in terms of complexity as far as the way it's written. But I've been enjoying it as sort of just a casual summer read. So I picked up that. But then I also picked up No Coincidence, which is the latest Cyberpunk 2077 novel that came out by a Polish writer. So not Sapkowski from The Witcher fame. But it's apparently all the reviews are saying that, like, if you enjoy the game, like the book was written for people who liked the game and or Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Or the RPG, or the anime. And so they're saying that if you enjoyed those, this book is something you're really going to enjoy. If you've never played the game or watched the anime, you probably would find it hard to get into. But since I've done both, I'm super pumped. So I will probably read that when Phantom Liberty comes out. I did pre-order that, by the way. Because I was like, I don't expect to play it right when it comes out, and why do I need to? I don't, because it's a single player experience. But I'm excited nonetheless. So
yeah,
I don't even know what got us started on that path, but
don't know.
No clue.
Well, should we talk about a little news action?
Why don't you guide us through this?
Well, the first thing I have posted here is Baldur's Gate 3 had a couple of patch notes. We're up to patch 2, I believe, and it's now live.
Yeah.
Basically, there's not really a whole lot to discuss here. It's bug fixes. They've added what they've called Withers. What is it here? Withers Wardrobe of Wayward Friends. So, Wayward Friends. So I guess there was a problem that a lot of people would have where that they would set up their game to be able to host, basically, that people could kind of pop in and play a little bit and then they would pop out and I guess
like a public game or something.
Yeah, so their characters would stay in the world without a player. And so it was a pretty big deal. I don't know why you would set up your world to be joinable for whomever, just some Joe Schmo. But, it's the way that some people would want to play, I guess. I don't know. Just have a ragtag group of murder hobos join you along the road. So, but there was a problem, and there was, this is evidently going to fix it and allow you to boot said player when they log out. So it's a good little feature that I guess addressed that sort of problem for the game. But there's just a huge number of UI improvements. It reduced the size of save games, which I guess is, especially with save scummers, it's been a big problem. Some performance optimizations, but other than that, it's just a lot of, we fix this bug, this crash, this, that sort of thing. So it's not a lot of, I'm not reading all of that. It's rather boring and tedious. And,
just a lot of.
Let's move on to something else. So.
What's interesting about that is the save thing that you mentioned. I don't save scum at all. Like if something happens bad, I'm living with it. I am kind of not devastated. I am very concerned with some of the decisions I've made since starting Act 3, that if I'm going to have to choose between Shadowheart and some other stuff, spoilery, it's going to be really hard, like a mental, emotional toll. So we'll see. But what's interesting is, because I don't save scum, I maybe I don't have as many saves as these people, but I feel like I hit autosave like all the time. And it's not because I'm like, oh, I need to go back. It's because I literally might just die in any combat. Like I just have no clue. And so I don't want to have to reset like an hour and a half because I wasn't autosaving. So
I do that.
So
I autosave because I don't want to have to go through 2.5 hours of what I just
story beats and stuff again.
Yeah, I play the game the same way. In fact, you should see my character who started out as a attractive half drow lady, now looks
I can imagine
fairly horrifying. So I'm like, well, okay, I guess I made that bed. So
and mine actually, that speaking to that specific topic, which I suppose we'll get to a little bit later in the Baldur's Gate 3 stuff, but I made consciously the opposite decision to what I ended up with, and then I failed a check, and I didn't realize that check was going to be the make it or break it moment. And so I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna live with this. So
it's the way D&D campaigns are run. So I'm playing it. It's not like you can say, hold on, Dungeon Master, let's do that again. No, that's not the way this works.
I have a mulligan. No,
we will not have a mulligan. In fact, your character will die. But so the next little bit of news is I don't know how far you want to go into this, but New World has a new expansion that was announced, and this, I don't know if this came out of the blue. At least it hit me out of the blue. I had no idea this was even in the works at all. So Rise of the Angry Earth announcement, which is fairly big. It's their first paid expansion.
Oh, it is a paid expansion.
Yeah, if you own the game, it's $30, and you can buy the whole game, I think, for $60. That sort of thing with the expansion if you don't own the game. I don't know. They've announced mounts.
That's my big takeaway from it, honestly.
Yeah, the flail.
Oh yeah, and that too, because I've always loved flails as weapons in fantasy games ever since Varix and the Barrows and RuneScape. But yeah.
So it looks interesting. I don't know. I know some of our friends are back into New World. I played because I missed out on the launch. Not
for better or worse. It's just strictly for better. You didn't play it until then. Yeah,
I didn't play it, and but I picked it up when it was on sale on Steam. I don't remember when. Late last year, I believe, sometime around Christmas, I think. And
like
was it early this year?
It was January. It was sometime after you had kind of had enough of WoW. So I think it was like March.
I know. Yeah, it was right around there. Oh, okay.
When you played it,
spring.
Yeah.
So that's when I picked it up and I started playing. I got to, I don't remember what level I got to.
Maybe 40 at least. I know that they've upgraded the new level experience for new players, or
it was
just
fairly streamlined. And I had a good time. I played it solo, so I'm sure it would be better played with friends. But I'm interested in this. I'm gonna wait and see where how long it's gonna take me to finish everything else that I've got on my plate.
That's the key. That's what I say. I'm like,
or I pick up a dessert. So
this expansion is not
my vegetables.
This expansion's not coming out until October 3rd, and we've got Starfield's official release. We've got Lies of P, which I think is probably just going to be I'll play a little bit of it, and if it really grabs my attention, I'll get far, but I don't expect to beat it. I don't know. And then we've got, of course, what's the 21st? There's something that's the 21st this month.
Of September? No, is that Cyberpunk?
No, Cyberpunk is the 26th. Maybe I'm misremembering. But anyway, and then, of course, there's Cyberpunk's expansion. But honestly, I think this first half of September is going to be dominated by me finishing Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield. And so my opinion is I will wait until October 3rd. And if we've still got a decent sized group that's down to play it, down to dive into the expansion, then I'll pick it up come October and I'll play it. The mount thing is obviously the most interesting for anyone who's played New World, I think, because
yeah, it's a lot of running.
There's a lot of running. And that worked when the game was new because there were people everywhere. And so it was just the way you do things. And by running, you wouldn't miss some of the stuff off the beaten path. Like you would, you can find like trees to chop down or ore to mine on the edge of cliffs as you're traversing these roads and stuff. But the key was that because there were no mounts, the idea, and of course this game was supposed to be a PvP only or specific game.
Yeah.
The idea was like, if there's no mounts, then you're forced to run from place to place, and then the odds of getting into PvP combat is more likely, other than just being able to mount up and run away. Well, since PvP is a flagged system, and like honestly, if I play that game, I'm just gonna leave it off. Like I don't have enough time to play that game to play in a way where PvP would be enabled, but also have the opportunity of hindering what I'm trying to do. Like there's far too many games out that I want to play and far too little time for me to not be able to play New World, get into as Eternum, and just do what I'm there to do, which in the case of the expansion will be getting a mount, leveling up the flail, leveling up to 60. I think I'm like 50. I'm going to play the same character that I created all those times ago. I really don't care about the new leveling experience because, again, I don't really like leveling in games a ton. The system in Guild Wars 2 is great. Like leveling 1 to 80 in Guild Wars 2 is a bit of a chore. But once you're 80, like the leveling of your masteries, that I like, because no matter where you are, what you do in an area, you get XP that goes toward the mastery track relating to that area. I really like that. ESO hated leveling to 50. The champion points was kind of hit or miss because eventually you just get so high that you're like, what's another 0.01% in a specific ability going to do? The exception to this rule is that with WoW, I actually think the leveling 1 to certainly 60, but then 60 to 70 specifically in the Dragon Isles or whatever, I think the leveling in WoW is fantastic. It's probably, and it's because there's so much game that you can just pick what expansion or whatever you want to level, and then you level through the story. And it's exceptionally well done, in my opinion. But then it's, of course, the end game of WoW that is just straight grind and whatever. So with New World, I'm just playing my level 50, whatever it is, character, get it to 60, level up some weapons, gonna have some fun trying to get a mount, and that's gonna be my entire focus. So so we'll see.
We'll see. Yep, we'll see. The last little bit was this is a really quick little snippet, and I don't know how valid a source called Esports Illustrated is, but whatever. This came up on my phone, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So the Arcane, which I mentioned last episode, and Conniff has mentioned as well, is one of our favorite anime series that's on Netflix. That's League of Legends based, but really kind of opens up the world. I'm not a League of Legends fan, but I really enjoy this world that they've created. And Arcane Season 2 has it's funny because the article says a release date is confirmed, and they're like, well, it's probably going to come out
a release
in late
year
2024. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. But at least it has been confirmed that it is coming out next year. So that's pretty exciting that we will have that to look forward to. So
I'm super pumped for that specifically. I've watched the first season of Arcane through at least 3 times, and I think I'm currently somewhere on number 4. And you might be asking, Conniff, what the heck? Like, it's a 9-episode show. Like, why do you like it so much? And the simple answer is, it is probably one of the best written animated shows that I've ever seen. I used to probably say that Avatar: The Last Airbender was the front runner for, and specifically the first, not Korra, although I know people love Korra, but Avatar: The Last Airbender with Aang, Sokka, Katara, Zuko, Gang, Toph was exceptionally well written. It was a kid's show, but they wrote these characters like with some subtleties that adults would pick up on, and it was fantastic. Arcane, I would say Arcane is kind of an adult show with some elements that kids, there's some really creepy stuff, not creepy, but like dark stuff that maybe I would say, probably aimed more at teenagers. But as an adult, like, Arcane is one of my favorite animated shows, and it's so well written that I'm pumped for season 2. I wonder if it's going to follow the same story that was in season 1. I know that at one point they mentioned this in the documentary that they made about the behind the scenes with it, that they wanted to tell like other stories using the Arcane method.
Other characters.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting. I mean, I've kind of grown attached to,
of course,
that story in particular, and would like to see that go forward. But I could see it just being as good with and introduce me, not someone that's a complete noob to that world, to different characters that I have no idea exist. So
there's a lot of them. I was talking to my brother-in-law, and he is like you, like, well, maybe even more in the dark. Like, he knows nothing about League of Legends. And he watched Arcane and was like, this is phenomenal. And he reads like double the amount of books that I do, a lot more intense books. He's a pretty well-read person and sort of academic in that endeavor, and he loved Arcane. So did I mention that we're talking about doing episodes on that? Did I mention it on air on a show? I don't remember.
I don't think you've mentioned it on air.
So listener, we are planning on doing at some point a 3-part episode series on the show, the first season, with each episode pertaining to one of the 3 arcs that the first season's broken into. So obviously, like, the first 3 episodes have a specific story arc. The whole thing has a overarching story, but the first 3 have a story arc, the middle 3 have a story arc, and then the last 3. And so we want to do a few episodes on that and discuss it, and I think it'll be a great time sometime in the future. So
cool. But before we jump into Baldur's Gate 3, just quick little pan over of what we've been up to in Guild Wars 2 since we covered that last episode in Secrets of the Obscure. So I've finished the story. I've finished the new friend achievement, which is basically getting the sky scale once again.
Did you get the new skin for it then?
This new skin requires another set of achievements. Okay. And I'm working through that. Some of that is time gated, and I'm looking at it going, what have I gotten myself into? So it's one of those, you need blankety blank of this and blankety blank of that. Oh boy, here we go again. So,
which is fun. Like, I like that type of stuff.
Oh, I do
Wars,
too. Though. But I just didn't expect that to run into that wall once I had gotten all of that done for an amount that I already had. So it's like,
I think that's probably the part where if you hadn't already gotten the sky scale, it wouldn't bother you one bit.
Oh no!
But because both you and I have done the actual original sky scale grind, which I enjoyed the entire thing except for having to move around Dragon's Fall. It's the Kralkatorrik zone, right? End of Living World Season 4.
Yeah, I think so.
That zone, so you're doing all this to get the sky scale. But that zone without a fully maxed mastery sky scale is a extreme pain to do anything in. And so it's kind of like I need it to be able to get it. And that was a hard pill to swallow. And so now that I've got it and, maxed out the mastery, the original masteries, I was like, yes. So have you finished your the new flight masteries then with this new expansion?
Yes. Yeah, they're all done. So, yeah, I guess at this point, I'm pretty well done with Secrets of the Obscure. I mean, obviously, there are things achievements to hunt down and other stuff to do in the game. But, as far as Soto is concerned for right now, I can slow down from neckbeard pace to maybe just face beard. So
just the stubble. I mean,
yeah, just a little stubble.
Did you like the story? Was that coming from all the stories? And I know you've done all of them in Guild Wars 2. It's
very adult centric. Okay. So it's coming from almost a little, I won't say dark fantasy, but I mean, it's more of a traditional wizards versus these strange void demons. Yeah. So there's a little bit of, it's a little psychological horror elements to it, I guess you could say. I mean, it's very subtle, but it's not like in your face or Hellblade by any stretch of the imagination. But I enjoyed it, and Felicia Day did a really great job with Zoja, and I didn't really care for Zoja, even though I do love Felicia Day. I didn't really care for Zoja as a character going through that story, or through all the way up to Heart of Thorns. I'm like, she's a little sassy and just all up in your face all the time. Yeah, and it's a different spin on her, and you really kind of appreciate that character and what she's actually been through, and what she's been up to since. Well, I won't spoil Heart of Thorns, but you don't. You just don't hear from her ever again, and all of a sudden she appears. So,
surprise! This is what she's been up to.
It would have been nice to actually have a little bit more of Timey and her
interacting.
But
interesting.
Just a few little comm calls, as we'll call it, since Timey's in the End of Dragon still. So. But I have really enjoyed the story for this expansion, and I'm looking forward to what they have coming down the road for it. It should be really, really interesting. And it was kind of a really unexpected turn, so it was really good. I think you'll really enjoy it.
That's good. I think my favorite, and looking back on it, I haven't done Living World Season 1, 2, or Heart of Thorns in a very long time. Not years. Of course, my entire Guild Wars 2 experience has been within the course of a year at this point. I did get my first birthday gift in-game, by the way, last week, I think it was. So that was fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. But I think I really enjoyed Heart of Thorns, but I think Living World Season 3 there were a few story beats in that I really, really liked, and then others I didn't. But I want to say Path of Fire was my favorite story that game told across all of them. I thought, Living World Season 4 was great, of course, Joko, but I wish, surprisingly, the whole Kralkatorrik thing in that season was not as good as the Joko stuff, in my opinion. And so with Balthazar and everything that was taking place and sort of the build-up to Joko that was happening in Path of Fire, that was my favorite. And Timey was a huge part of that. I think Casimir was in that one too. Bram was he was still on his
Still Bramming.
walkabout, still Bramming. He was still on his little sojourn or whatever. And then so I'm excited to actually get to play more of this. So far, what I've done in End of Dragons has been fun. I definitely like End of Dragons more than Icebrood Saga, more than Living World Season 1 and 2. I don't know how I feel about it compared to Heart of Thorns, because Heart of Thorns had some pretty devastating moments in it that kind of set the stage for later expansions. So I haven't done much. Of course, I have been gone, but I have worked on the flight masteries. I think I only have the Leyline Acclamation and then whatever the last one is, and then I'm done with that track. And I told you and Stark, but once I finish that, I'm going to go back to End of Dragons, finish that story before I come back to Secrets of the Obscure. Anytime I see like a mastery that's related to like mounts or movement or something of that effect, I'm like, oh, I gotta have it. I gotta make my Griffin and my Sky Scale better. So.
Yeah, even if it's just that 0.05%.
Yes, yeah.
They do help out a little bit, but
yep.
I'm up to 435.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
I am 345, I think. I'm one higher than Stark was the last time I played. So that's all that's important, is that I have finally overtaken him. I'm sure he'll see this as a challenge, and then next time I log in, he'll be like 10 higher.
Totally.
So it is what it is. We love you, Stark. All right, Shiloh, shall we dive into some of our Baldur's Gate 3 shenanigans? Huh?
Let's do it.
Nice.
Well, if it isn't our two illustrious adventurers, friends, you should read what they're really saying about you in the latest Baldur's Mouth.
What sort of wild tales are they spinning this time?
Grab a seat and I'll bring you some ale. Why don't you tell me what really happened?
I think this might be the best Act 2 in a game I've ever played. I was... 3? No, Act 2. So the entirety of Act 2. Obviously, I'm now in Act 3. But like typically, I feel like games that are split into different acts, the one in the middle is always like, it's either there's too much, there's not enough, and it's all set up for the last one or whatever. But what I felt like is Act 1 was really just like the appetizer. Act 2 was actually the main course meal, and then Act 3 is like dessert and drinks, which of course you have to have if you're gonna do this fancy meal. But Act 2 just blew my socks off with the story, with the tragedy of certain characters. I would say that a big part of this probably has to do with the fact that Shadowheart's story is pretty huge in Act 2. I'm not actually sure how that works with all the other characters. Gale's, I feel like, is going to really, like, his moment is going to be in Act 3. I think Asterion as well. And since those three are the only ones that I've ever ran with, I guess I wouldn't really know. I know you've got Lae'zel and all that, but of course, like, Shadowheart's story was really, it took turns that I wasn't expecting, and but I felt like it was really well written and tied in with what else was going on in the act. So Act 2, fantastic, but we're not here to talk about Act 2. We're here to talk about Act 3, and finally getting to the namesake of the game itself, Baldur's Gate. So, without spoilers, Shiloh, how are you enjoying the city?
Oh, I'm loving it so far. I just got to lower Baldur's Gate, and I haven't really been playing as much as I was. I've been knee deep into Guild Wars 2 and dealing with AC problems at work, but what I have explored in the lower Baldur's Gate in my playtime it's been really, really great. There's a few things that I really wanted to kind of single out as my single player moments that I will probably always remember, and the kind of wonderment of the city. So that I think they did a really, really, really good job of setting the game up to where by the time you get to Baldur's Gate, it's almost like, oh, we finally got here, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, but they lost our baggage, and our credit card's getting declined because we forgot to tell our bank that they were going on vacation, and so all this crap's going on at Baldur's Gate, and you're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have even we should have just stayed at the
Grove.
Yeah, stayed at the Grove. But there's just so much, just artistically, and it's almost overwhelming. Like, it feels like an actual city. So when you walk in, there's all these different conversations, and you hear all these voices, and it can just be like, it feels like an actual city. It's
a little much,
really, really good. But there was one particular area that I wanted to mention. I won't talk about
the context
for spoiler reasons, but Lady Janeth's estate. So if you get to the game, if you've met Oscar, who we'll get to in our multiplayer playthrough, he was at the Zentirum hideout in Act 1.
Well, if we met him,
the artist, Tempest met him
okay,
with a grenade. But it's
classic Carlisle.
If you talk to him, he kind of tells you of his story and leads you back to Baldur's Gate and promises you, return to Baldur's Gate and we shall blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, sure. And I just kind of sent him on his merry way. And I met him back at this estate. Let's just say the estate's really kooky. And
okay.
I'll just leave it at that.
Sounds
it was
exciting.
really, really interesting, really, really interesting quest to kind of get through, but managed to get through that. Styrian's story has taken a really, really interesting turn with his patron. He's got some visitors that have shown up when you try to make camp and things that are very, very interesting.
Okay.
And then the last little bit that I wanted to mention was Sorcerer's Sundries, which is I guess tied to Gale's story in particular, but it's a very popular. It was in the original Baldur's Gate 1. I mean, it's just a staple for the city.
Okay,
it's a huge magic shop. The owner has a holographic projection of himself set up almost like a voicemail, which is really, really funny. So you talk to the NPC, and he's like, "If you'd like to do this, please say what."
That's kind of like there's something like that in Vox Machina, isn't there? Like that one shop owner with all the magical items or something. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember the name, and of course, like I watched season 1. He plays more of a part in season 1 of Vox Machina than 2, but I'm starting to pick up on some of these obvious influences that Matt Mercer and co used for Critical Role, and so I think it's quite exciting. But that sounds really fun, and I think what you said early on is that like it feels like a bustling city and everything. Like I'm not even in. I'm just in Worms Crossing, which I'm assuming is just the precursor.
Yeah,
it feels so alive with all the people running around and having conversations, and I've found 2 people having a picnic outside of a windmill, and they told me off because it was a private picnic, and I was like, okay, whatever. And just various things that make the world feel like lived in. So if anyone has played Divinity 2 or Divinity Original Sin 2, it's like Arcs, which is the final act of Divinity Original Sin 2, but times like 20. it's just massive. And Arcs was cool. It was a cool final act of the game, but when you really got done with stuff, you're like, man, this place is actually really tiny comparatively. And so Baldur's Gate is like, it's like probably the size of Novigrad, or maybe even like part of Night City from Cyberpunk, with how like just how vast and how many things there are to see and do. And and again, I'm only in Worms Crossing, but
but even Worms Crossing is pretty amazing. I expected Worms Crossing, because the way it's kind of told in the papers and modules and everything that I've read and played through and all of that, and for regular D&D, is Worms Crossing is almost like a hovel, and it doesn't really it doesn't really, you don't get that hovel feel, I don't think, but it's set up like it's set up very, very well, and almost kind of exactly what I had in mind with what it is, basically a long bridge that leads into Baldur's Gate with shacks and things that are basically clinging to the sides of the bridge.
Of the bridge, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you think of like areas in other countries.
There's a place like that in China. I'd have to Google it, but I don't.
Yeah. But yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind, were images of in other countries of basically shacks on shacks of things that are just built on top of one another that kind of go down a bridge, which I think I must have seen somewhere in the world, and we're like, okay, well that's what Baldur's Gate or Worms Crossing must look like. But
Chongqing,
but it looks a lot nicer in the game than I was expecting. So
Chongqing Lindsay, and that's terrible English pronunciation of a Chinese city. That's the bridge city.
Okay.
And
that's probably what I've seen. The
pictures of it look like what I have seen of this bridge in Baldur's Gate 3. So I have not gotten as far as you. And what
You're almost there, though.
Yeah, what I experienced. So Act 2 wraps up, and there's a bit of like an epilogue in Act 2 of, like discussions at your camp, depending on who happens to be there. And until you finally like go the road to Baldur's Gate, and it has that pop-up that's like, there's no turning back. Like, this is Baldur's, we're on the way to Baldur's Gate. If you have anything to finish up, any loose ends, tie 'em up now. And when you hit yes on that, from that point until you actually get to being able to walk around Worms Crossing is like a whirlwind of experiences. Because one, you get some, like, depending on what you do, some characters stay behind, I think, and maybe they always do. But then you get to the first camp area, and there's that tower, and you're overlooking the bridge and Baldur's Gate and everything. And then you try to sleep, and you just all of a sudden get ganked by Githyanki, and there's this whole ordeal, or you go into this realm, and I'm trying to tiptoe around spoilers, but you meet your dream protector, and that turns into a sort of big game decision moment that you have to choose. And I accidentally made the decision that I wasn't so keen on. I wasn't so accident. I chose an option thinking that I would be able, maybe to, if I failed the check, to go back and choose another option. Nope, you fail that check, which I did. You live with your decision. And so all this, and then Shadowheart was swooning over me, and so one thing led to another, and we are swimming in a lake, and bada bing, bada boom. If you know anything about Shadowheart, that does play, has some significance because she's never learned to swim. So there's this whole neat moment. Neat is in quotes, where you are showing her the ropes, if you will. And so anyway, stuff happens, and she changes her hair, and that was really cool. I think I like her better with her new hair than her old hair, honestly.
Right.
You wouldn't know because you let Lizelle gut her like a stuck pig, but
Stuck pig.
whatever. Yep. And then just getting to Worms Crossing and just the sheer amount of people, like I couldn't walk more than like 5 feet without sticking my nose in someone's business, I didn't need it. And so there's just a ton of that. And I think before I had to leave for the weekend, I like parked myself right outside where the circus is. So I'm pretty excited to experience that and all that entails. But
like characters are like just the epitome of a tourist in New York or something.
Yeah.
It's like, what's your reading?
Yeah.
Hey, get out of here. Leave me alone.
Can I not talk to you? Do you not have anything for me?
Out of here.
And so another thing is was like Shadowheart was almost fully encumbered. My character was almost all encumbered. I desperately needed an actual merchant with money so I could offload a ton of crap. And the first one I tried turned out to be a certain enemy main character, and that didn't work. And so that they accidentally died. And so I'm like, man, I really needed to sell stuff. And so finally I found a merchant that wasn't or was actually who they claimed to be, and I was able to offload I think I offloaded a total of like 14,000 gold worth of items because I had like 4,000, 5,000 gold, offloaded a bunch, bought like 2 items for like 7 or 8,000 gold total, and then offloaded a ton more and got back up to like 8,000 gold. So I'm rolling in it. And thankfully Shadowheart's inventory at least is completely cleaned out. Mine is the character that you always play as and do all like the dialogue and read books and everything with, their inventory is always going to be just a mess because I always loot with them.
Full of all the scrolls that you want.
Well, I give Grohl. I give Dave Grohl all my I give
that's nice of you.
Yes, I give Gale all my scrolls since he's the wizard. But then I don't ever use them because his spells are powerful. I guess some of them I do because they don't take spell slots, and so that's nice. But like most fights, I feel like I've got a really good handle on the strengths of my party, and so I don't ever need to really burn through a ton of spell slots these days. So. But anyway, that's my single player moments. Multiplayer, we had a rather short multiplayer session this past week, and I'm not sure if we're going to have one this upcoming, the night of the episode releasing, because Starfield, 2, Tempest is on vacation, 3, your AC is out, 4,
Starfield.
Starfield, yeah. Let's get back to Starfield. Cool. But we did have a multiplayer session, and we had 2. Yeah, it was like a pretty low key experience overall, which will kind of lead us into our overall thoughts on multiplayer. But there was Karlak's Rage Room. Do you remember this? The house. What was happening? Because I did not watch the cutscene. And
so you didn't. Have you? Okay. So
in my single player, I did that whole building before I even met Karlak.
Okay.
So and I've never had her in my party, so
that's what she does. Because that was the first thing that I did when I met her.
Okay.
Was go to that place, and she basically just goes on her barbarian crazy town, and I'm like, yes, I want you in my party right now. Gail was currently holding spot 4, and as soon as I saw that, I'm like, all right, you're
all right, Gail, back to camp.
Give me all your stuff. Yeah, get in your undies. You're sitting in camp. So that's what he currently does. Is he gobbles up a occasional magic item and just stands there in his underwear at my camp. So he's living his good life, really. I mean, if you think about it, he just gets to be.
He is one of the few people in our multiplayer, few Origin characters in our multiplayer session that hasn't died or ran away. So that's positive.
Well, there's that.
It's basically him and Shadowheart that are the only two there. We may have. This would have been last session. We forgot to mention that Asterion. Yeah, he's gone. He's not dead, as far as we know, but he's definitely out of our party. It'll be interesting to see if we come across him again, or if you make that decision if you come across him. So
I don't
know. But then there was the Zentarium. How do you pronounce that? I've seen that name pop up. It was that hideout.
Yeah, that's Zents are that's the paladin that in Honor Among Thieves.
Wait, what are they called?
A Zent.
Which is short for Zentirum or something.
Yeah.
Wait, so what's his face? The paladin that hops over the rock in Honor Among.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was a Zent.
So well, paladin, huh? Because they weren't doing very paladin things in that hideout.
Oh no, and that's kind of his. That was his whole spin. He was kind of the
goody two shoes.
Not typical Zent, I suppose.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But yeah, it's that was interesting. We the first time through, I think we met the head honcho, and you're like, where are you going? And you started following her.
Yeah, because she was booking it. I was like, man, she's running away. Did someone say something? I don't think you're
supposed to do. Like, she's like, all right, I'm going to the main office, so you guys just stay here and do whatever you want.
Yeah,
and you were like,
was
hey,
real
wait, I got some questions for you.
Yes, well, that was bad news.
No.
You ain't
so that started an entire blowout of that entire place, and we ended up dying.
Yes.
Second time through, Tempest just decided to just destroy the entire area with
Karlach Rage Room Part 2.
Yeah, every grenade in the book, which set a chain reaction of all these explosives on the bottom, and then we were able to kind of clear out the rest of the trash at the top. But
yes,
yeah,
it was. We did loot some,
including poor Oscar, who is just.
Is he dead?
Oh yeah,
rip.
I'm
Classic.
sure he didn't make it.
The highlights of which will be on YouTube the day this episode releases, so you can watch some of that. But yeah, it was we ended up looting some gloves that apparently made Jeff mad and put him in combat all the time. That was weird. They looked like cool gloves on paper, but I totally misread the fact that he has to win or do a saving throw or something where he becomes mad, which was like, wow, that's pretty intense.
Wow.
But it was fun. So my overall thoughts, and you put this in here, and this is kind of my straight to the point. I think the multiplayer in Baldur's Gate 3 is fantastic, but it's likely better with just 2-player co-op with then 2 computer-controlled companions or Origin characters instead of a full 4-person co-op. And I think this for 2 reasons. One, actually scheduling with 4 other humans is very difficult. The nice thing is the game is completely online co-op. You know, we talked about the whole Series S problems with split screen and whatever. I couldn't imagine doing 4-player co-op or 4-player split screen in this game. But as far as like 4-player multiplayer, it works. It's great. But you have to be able to schedule with the same people every time. You don't have to. Actually, let me rephrase that. You don't have to have the same people. But if you're trying to play through it and people have, like we have, minus Tempest, created characters for this with specific ways that you intend to play those characters, like you got to play with the same people. So just like a real D&D group, the biggest hurdle is getting the same people consistent on a schedule.
Yeah.
The second part about this is if you all make your own characters, if you're all like playing this together, if you have 4 people, you miss out on the origin character storylines, which, unless you're playing them, which do add a lot of flavor and experience to what you're doing for the main story. And so I think 2 people, 2-person co-op, you both make your own character, and then you've got 2 of the origin or companion NPCs in your party. I think that is probably the way to go. What do you think?
Yeah, that's probably the sweet spot.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate, but there's no way to really replicate an actual pen and paper, having an actual DM organize a campaign around other people's backstories, that sort of thing. Like, there's no way that the game can do that for original PCs that are going through a world. It's just, the obvious thing is scheduling.
Yes.
I think the optimal way to really play this game would be for you and a friend, and just like you said, 2 computer controlled companions, origin characters, that maybe you split up between the 2 of you would be kind of the way to go. But I've really enjoyed the multiplayer, and I think we'll continue on with it. But it's just such a different animal. Kind of belongs in Animal's single player format. But I've really, really loved the fact that they did add multiplayer to this game. Kind of adds a whole different element.
Yes.
So many interesting things you can do that we haven't even touched upon. So.
Yep. All right. That's Baldur's Gate 3. Now we've got the next big thing, maybe.
Good evening, folks. This is your captain speaking. We've begun our descent into Alpha Centauri's atmosphere and should be arriving at New Atlantis Spaceport in just about 10 minutes. On behalf of Constellation, we hope you enjoy your stay.
So what do you know, Shiloh, about this game so far? You're the only one that's played Starfield.
Yeah, and not a lot of it. I've played right about 5 hours, I suppose, which is...
It's a solid start.
It's a start, yeah. I still have today and tomorrow to play till early access is gone. Well, I mean, it goes right into the launch. But to try to get my $30 worth is I have tonight and tomorrow or whatever I play.
You got a cool spacesuit, I guess, right? And the first expansion, whenever that is.
Yeah, and the first expansion. New skins for the guns and stuff. My first impression is, quite honestly, I was a little like, okay, well, here we are. It's Starfield. It's very reminiscent of Fallout 4 graphically, I suppose, with slight upgrades.
Okay.
It feels like a Bethesda game, is what I'll say. And I don't know if I was going into it thinking it was going to be something completely different or mind-blowing, but once I kind of got over that and really started to kind of dive into the game itself, I really started to enjoy it a lot more. It even has a little bit of, which I guess is very reminiscent of Fallout 4, which is the 76 vibe, where the combat is not VATS at all, which is nice.
Yes.
Well, there was VATS in
76, but it was live action VATS.
Yeah, so there's no VATS at all, which is nice. So it feels like the gunplay feels good. Once I got an actual gun that didn't buck like a Bronco. Some of the earlier guns that I'm only level 5, I think, is what I've got. So I played 5 hours and I'm level 5, maybe level 6. The story is good. NPCs are pretty good, although some of the NPCs that I've met so far are a little bit too jovial. Maybe I've just been playing Baldur's Gate 3 for so long. I expect to be spat on when I go through the door, but it's
and that's true. That type
yeah,
of thing
but
does
it's
happen.
like, okay, everyone's nice to me. This is weird. But I think I'm finally starting to kind of dig into the story and really get a feel for the game. And
Okay.
so far, like, it's from my first hour or two, the latter part, the remaining three, I've really kind of taken a real hard, not necessarily hard turn, but a more turn towards a much more likable game than I thought I was going to get
Yes.
right out of the gate. So yeah, if you're expecting something other than a Bethesda, really good Bethesda space, Skyrim in space, or I think that's what it feels like, and that is on its own worth, probably for a lot of people, worth a lot of money right there. So
Yeah.
so far I'm really digging it. It's been a lot of fun. It is interesting to kind of go back to so much Bethesda loot, and you really start to see. I thought about this earlier today, was the amount of detail that even in ESO, like the amount of detail that Bethesda does for things like just the peripherals, like a desk in a normal MMO is just a desk with maybe a candle and maybe a piece of paper, and
Yeah.
Bethesda kind of cranks that up to 11 by adding all this different clutter, and it's pretty neat to kind of actually go through a title like that and see that. And Baldur's Gate 3 does that as well. There's a lot of different
There is
elements to things. So
loot. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but it's so far I'm really enjoying it, and I don't know if, honestly, I don't think it's going to get Game of the Year, just from, and that's hard, that's really dumb for me to say because I've only played 5 hours of the game, but it's hard for me to really say it's gonna out joust Baldur's Gate 3.
Right.
So.
And BG3 is competing again with like Tears of the Kingdom and some other games like Hogwarts Legacy that are like pretty big deals. And so like it's not even sure that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to win. And so Starfield would have had to come out of the gate and been like the greatest space game ever created. And while I think
it might well be, I you know, like I said, it's only 5 hours in, but I'm starting to warm up to a lot of the stuff. But it's yeah, we'll see where all this takes. It's going to be a long haul, which will be interesting to play another
long
haul
haul
game right after Baldur's Gate 3. But here we are.
Here we are.
So.
I did want to, before we move into sort of what we know about the story and lore and the timeline and all that, our friend Moses, who I know from real life, from my board gaming days and from going up to Omaha, Nebraska, he kind of put a good pros and cons list in our Discord of kind of what the news outlets and the reviewers were saying. And so the pros are awesome shipbuilding, big world to explore, feels good to just play. The combat's good, and for Bethesda, that's a big deal because Fallout 4 and, certainly Fallout 3 and New Vegas combat were terrible gunplay. This is the biggest game that Bethesda's released. The perks and backgrounds are really cool and do a good job changing up the game in cool ways. Great environments. Some bugs, but mostly minor and nothing game-breaking. That's a huge deal for Bethesda.
Yeah, that's like, whoa.
76, and I'm sure Fallout 4, and definitely Skyrim. And then weapon modding essentially lets you make your own unique legendary weapons, which is cool. And then the cons, though, are bad inventory system. And I got to talking, and I was like, you know what, though? I feel like, I think this was a conversation I had with Tempest. I was like, Bethesda games, especially like, the Fallouts, their inventory system is terrible. I remember going back to Fallout 76, and I'm like, so my entire inventory is viewed on this menu in my Pip-Boy. and I noticed that I had made like the guns that I actually used, I had to change their name and put ZZZ or ZZZ for you English and Australian and New Zealand folks, because I wanted them at the bottom so I didn't have to see them cluttering my entire inventory. So the inventory system in Bethesda games is terrible anyway.
Never been great.
But apparently it's not great in this one either. So that's kind of a bummer, but
yeah,
at least I'm not expecting anything else, you know, like
yeah, there's the weight thing is kind of something I ran into, and I immediately was
in
like,
5 hours
okay.
only. Good.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I got to get weightlifting just so I can get some more bulk to my character, so I can lug around more crap, so I can sell it, or just have stuff on me not that I need. So I'll be aware of that. But I could definitely say the inventory not great. But it's like you said, it's never been great. So
No.
What do we expect?
Other cons are it's very slow start. Did you think so with your
A little bit.
So that's a common theme with a lot of reviews. The AI is hit or miss. I don't know if that's literally like the AI you fight, or also, I guess the next con here is companions not always the best. So maybe the AI is just whatever. Which again
the AI,
is, you know,
it doesn't. The AI you can outsmart a few. It seems like you can outsmart it a little bit to where you could kind of. There's a lot to exploit that some people might find
easy or disappointing or something. Yeah.
But I think hit or miss is definitely. Sometimes they act really well, like enemy AI and your AI, but sometimes they're either in the way or the enemy AI you kind of confused enough to where they're just like kind of looking around trying to find you. You're like, okay, sure. So yeah, I don't know, but that's patchable, I would think. Maybe, I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah, the companions not being the best. I mean, Lydia in Skyrim is a meme. I really liked Nick Valentine in Fallout 4, and I never used. I don't think there's any companions in 76. I'm probably wrong about that, honestly. I never used them in 76. Fallout 4, though, like, Nick Valentine was great. It's a single-player game, though, which Starfield is. To me, companions are literally there to add flavor and color to your story beats, and so I don't really... Like, I've never really relied on them for combat in any game, except for Baldur's Gate 3, but then again, I'm controlling all of them. Or like Divinity, I control all of them. Some game mechanics are slowly rolled out. I guess that could be a case for some. Some planets are very barren but realistic, so it's like, I can't really.
What else do you expect?
Yeah, and I mean, with 1,000 planets, like, I mean, logically, there's no way they were all going to be full of things to see and do and whatever. One of the things that I didn't see on this at all, this pros or cons list, and really haven't seen much discussion on, is the outpost. I think it's the same as 76, where you can put it down pretty much wherever, assuming not in a city like New Atlantis. You couldn't do it, but like you fly to a planet, pick a landing zone, and then you could explore. And for me, like, that's fun because what I'm looking for is usually something with great views. In Fallout 76, it was important because you needed a location that was central to other stuff for fast travel purposes, but 90% of the time in 76, when I built a camp, it was, where is the best views? So I think that's probably what I do here. And so some of those barren planets, depending on, like, if it's barren, like just flat and looks like our moon or what we think our moon looks like, then okay, that's going to be kind of boring. But other planets that might be barren but have great resources, or like a lot of cliffs that overlook this gorgeous view, that will be fun to see. And then the final con is it isn't a pure boundaryless experience like No Man's Sky or Star Citizen. You can explore a full planet, but you have to get back in your ship and fly somewhere else and so on and so forth. So,
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Some of these cons, like the bad inventory system, like that's a bummer because with an RPG, like you're going to be in your inventory with a ton of loot and all sorts of stuff. So,
Yeah.
but some of them I'm just like with the amount of the game I'm actually going to see, like that's not a big deal. Like the barren planets thing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. What do we know, Shiloh, about the story and lore? What do you know? What is kind of the premise that's being set up for you that you have seen so far?
The major overarching story that I can gather so far is that you find a alien artifact, and this is not a huge spoiler.
It's in the trailer.
It's in the trailer, and it's in your beginning little cutscenes and playthroughs.
Yeah.
You find this artifact, and it kind of gives you a case of the vapors, and you end up like going into having hallucinations or going into like some weird space realm, and then you all of a sudden wake up and you start out as a miner mining some sort of ore on this planet, and you get woken up by the lead miner and her little buddy, and they're like, do you know who you are? And that's when character creation starts. So the idea is
No, I don't.
There's a organization called Constellation, which is the kind of emblem, like the rainbowish looking emblem. That's their kind of logo.
Yeah.
That's the name of the skin. That was
the pre-order, the premium upgrade.
Yeah, the premium upgrade Constellation pack. They are basically artifact hunters, almost like a Indiana Jones-esque in space, which is really, really cool. Like I'm on board with that. They have almost I'm not say Illuminati, but more of a base of operations. And you kind of go talk to them, meet them, and you're basically artifact hunting around the world. They found original piece of this artifact, and then you bring yours, and they interact, and it's this whole like, well, we got to find more of this artifact so we can figure out what this thing is. So
and then it forms the Halo ring, and then insert dun-da-da-da, dun-da-da-da. That's what it looks like in the deep dive or the trailer or something that they showed.
But yeah, Earth is no longer. It's basically a dust bowl at this point in the Starfield universe.
So this is in the not so distant future.
No, let's see. Current year for the game is around 2526 to 2530 is when the game takes place. So we're looking at almost 500 years in
500 years from now.
But the Earth was
fascinating
basically the Earth's atmosphere, global warming, blah blah blah. The ozone layer collapsed. The Earth's atmosphere basically started to deteriorate extremely fast, and all of Earth had 50 years to basically have a mass exodus, and otherwise the world was just going to burn. And the Earth is basically now a dust planet that's just floating in space with no real reason other than that to be there. So basically it's turned into Mars, and the rest of the Earthlings have basically gone off to different areas of space. So there is
horizons.
You run across it in the game. It's basically a huge star base outside of our moon, where other
interesting
star craft were created, and humans kind of started to space explore. So the game is pretty enormous. Obviously, you have 1,000 planets or whatever different. The one really cool thing about the game that I will say is fast travel is pretty prominent. So you can get in your ship. You can actually, even in certain scenarios, you can get in your ship from wherever you are in the world.
Okay.
And then go to X planet. And so once you figure all the mechanics of the game out, it becomes a lot clearer on like, okay, I can do this and I can do that. And I can get in my spaceship and go to hyperdrive and get to this other solar system pretty easily. There's not a lot of like dead time, floating around in space on your spaceship. Because I mean, as cool as that is as a novelty, eventually that gets really old after maybe 15 minutes of having to just go on a space route and just see space for 15 minutes. It's not exactly enthralling gameplay, but so I don't know if how far of this we really want to get into, but
we'll save it for the next episode, because the next episode is going to be a huge. Yeah, like I don't even think we're going to talk about Baldur's Gate 3 next episode. Like we want to give Starfield its full attention. Yeah. But yeah, you have the link and you can put it in the Discord.
Yeah, it's a really cool little brief history that kind of goes from our current timeline for the most part up until 2050 to the current timeline of the game and what has occurred for humanity or actually not even necessarily just humanity, but what has occurred in the world from our current timeline to 2526 to 2530, which is when the game takes place. So pretty cool little lore section. We'll get into that next episode, but overall thoughts on it. I think you're gonna really enjoy it. I think
nice.
I think any listener, especially if you're a huge Skyrim fan, which I enjoyed Skyrim. I think I like The Witcher 3 better. Probably
at this day and age, I do. Yes, I think Skyrim is an all right game. It was the game that kind of pushed open world RPGs the direction they are now, and for that I'm thankful, because we've gotten Witcher 3, we've gotten Cyberpunk, even like Valhalla, AC Odyssey, AC Origins, like those games probably wouldn't exist if it weren't for Skyrim. So but I think The Witcher 3 is much better story-wise.
But I think as this game, it's gonna be one of those slow burns where you just kind of get into it and you're like, okay. And one of the cons was that it's slow at the beginning. So, and I'm only 5 hours in, so 5 hours from now I might be fully invested in this game and immersed. But I'm enjoying it, and I think it's
2 days.
To the moon.
Well, if you're listening to this episode on release day, 1 day, and then we've got it. There was this thing I saw on Reddit that someone posted, and I was like, man, this experience would make the game for me. Just like one of those experiences where you're like, I like this game a lot because of this. And so this person writes, they went to a backwater planet. It was in a system I needed to explore to jump to a further system. I found an abandoned science outpost, cleared it out, got some loot, etc. Then when I walked out the front door, I noticed a ship that wasn't mine about 600 meters in the distance. As I approached, I saw no one. The area seemed deserted, so I walked up the ramp and noticed it was an eclectic bayonet. Must be some brand of ship or something. Cool, I thought. Free ship. I opened the hatch to find this sucker packed to the brim with mercs. I fought for a few minutes and managed to make my way to the floor with the bridge, and just as it came into frame, I see one merc in the pilot seat, and boom! This psycho takes off from the planet's surface with me on board. Now remember, this guy writing, like, this wasn't his ship. This was a ship that he randomly found. Now this mercenary is taking off with it. NPC again. And so he says, I finished the battle in space, commandeer the ship, and all I can think of, that son of a gun wasn't lying. And he's referring to Todd Howard, not lying about some of the moments. And I think that's insanely cool because, one, you have to think like, okay, now I'm in space. Now I need to get back to where I was, to my ship. And I don't really know how that works. I mean, maybe you know, but maybe not because you're only 5 hours in. I'm guessing you can have like a roster of ships that you could customize in multiple ways or something, because I do know that, you know, he talked about how you can have multiple ships and some you'll find just like this. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So
yeah, it's that sort of thing that makes me go, well, it's way too early for me to really have any kind of opinion on the game. But those were my initial thoughts, and this sort of thing is what I really look forward to having go through, because some of the stuff just sounds really amazing.
Yeah, because a comment on this Reddit post was, friendly advice to anyone who has not yet stolen a ship: check it for contraband. Don't let the scanners in civilized space find it for you. That's just a ton of fun. Like, you know, the ability to, all right, I've got this ship, I cleaned it out from mercs. If you don't go and make sure you don't have contraband, you might get arrested and thrown in jail, which I'm assuming exists because every Fallout game, or not every Fallout, every Elder Scrolls game, you can get thrown in jail for stealing or whatever. So I think that'd be really cool. I'm super pumped for it. I've always loved Fallout more than Elder Scrolls. Like, the Fallout story just really grabs my attention. It's probably the post-apocalyptic nature of it, but just the way the vaults turn out to be these weird psychotic social experiments. Like, that's really neat to me. And so some of the backstory, some of the characters, just the setting is great. Yeah. So the fact that Starfield is space, and I've always loved space more than fantasy, truthfully. And then coming off of a pretty heavy fantasy themed year with Guild Wars 2, then Divinity, then WoW. What else do we play? Of course, Baldur's Gate 3. Like, going to space and having a space game, that's going to be a nice change of pace. So, well, Shiloh, anything else you want to add before we discuss next episode and run the outro?
No, I think that's it.
We'll have more next week for sure. So next episode, we are going to talk all things Starfield, just our thoughts, because I'll finally get to play. I actually have off the next week, so I'll actually get to play. But I think we're also going to include our next video game face-off matchup, and that's Kingdom Hearts versus Control. So we'll see. But anyway, thank you for listening. Take care.
Right. Questing the Multiverse is brought to you in part by Conniff Productions, Howes Wood Designs, and Joel Crawford. To follow along with our adventures, please follow us on Twitter at QTM Podcast and consider joining our Discord, a link of which can be found in the show notes or in our Twitter bio. Want your questions or comments read on the show? Email us at questingthemultiverse@gmail.com. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a review or a follow wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening.